Let me say something that you probably feel deep down. There's a version of you that can't come into the future with you. That version needs to die for the new version of you to live. And you know exactly what version I'm talking about here. There's an identity that you formed, an attachment to that identity that you formed over time. And it's about realizing that identity that you're living in, it's not you anymore. And it's not the identity that you want to go forward with to live the life that you want to live. So we need to destroy that identity and build that new version of you to allow you to live that fulfilled, enjoyable, exciting life that you want to live. So let's build that. Everyone says, you need to level up, you need to lock in, you need to become this new version of yourself. But no one actually sort of says and tells you how to do that. So I'm going to tell you how. But what we first need to understand is, what does this actually mean? And it's not, completely turning your life upside down, burning your old life down and creating a completely 100% new, reinvented version of yourself as such. But what it means to start with is just removing things that keep you tied to that old version of yourself. So listen, it's pretty simple. And what it is you're not stuck, you're not lost, you're just attached to an old version of you, an old identity of you that you don't want to be anymore. You're attached to emotions, to habits, to behaviours, to environments, people that built that old version of you. And that's why you feel lost. You feel lost not because there's something wrong with you, but because you're attached to that old version and old identity of you that's been built over years of conditioning, over years of your brain and your mind being attached to a version of you that feels safe and feels comfortable. Because remember, your brain is smart, is very smart, but it doesn't want you to take risks. It doesn't want you to change. It doesn't want you to become a new version of you. So that old identity that you have and that is keeping you in that position that you're in at this moment in time that you don't really enjoy or don't want to be, your brain is just protecting you from change. So you're not lost. You're not broken. You're just attached. And that's what we need to fix and what we need to change if you want to become a new version and a new identity that lives the life that you want to live. So let's talk about the psychology behind this. We don't act based on our goals. We set ourselves loads of goals. We all do, start of the new year's approaching and we'll probably set ourselves tons of goals, make this money, get this job, get this partner. You're going to set yourself loads of goals. But we don't act based on our goals. We act based on our identity. And that's something that you have to get your head around, because you can set yourself all of these goals, but you're still in that same identity and that same old version of you. It's going to be very difficult to achieve, as you can expect. So if you see yourself as someone who always fails, you're going to act in ways that will make that happen. If you see yourself as someone who isn't disciplined, you'll avoid discipline and you'll avoid the consistency that comes with discipline. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't deserve better, you won't even try. And that's what you've got to get your head around. It's almost the identity theory. In simple language, that is why motivation doesn't work. And when someone says to me, how are you so motivated all the time? I say, I'm not. But what I've built is an identity that is consistent and a version of me that is consistent with the gym, with working hard, with trying to become a better version of myself. But motivation doesn't work if the identity of you is still that old version that doesn't have the habits and the behaviours and the thoughts that will allow you to become that new version and that better version of yourself. So you're trying to put new behaviours on top of an old identity, and that clearly is just not going to work. So having the understanding of identity psychology and the fact that you're trying to build this new version and this new life on top of the old identity that still has the same habits, same behaviours, it's not going to work. And talking about behaviours, Behaviours is what creates your identity. And then your identity reinforces your behaviours. It's a loop. It is literally behavioural psychology. It's a behaviour loop. Those two things, they work in tandem. So what you do and how you behave is going to reinforce that identity. And the same goes with the identity and the behaviours that you do. So if you don't break that loop, if we don't change something about our behaviours, about our identity, then nothing changes. It's like the saying goes, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you've got to get your head around that as well. Most people will try to change their life from the outside. You know, goals, routines, apps, planners, you name it. People will do everything under the sun, but the real change happens inside. We need to build that new identity for us to be able to change. And I know you want to change. So we need to work on building that new identity first, because you're not the problem. Your system is, your identity is, and there is a fix for that. But the important thing to remember, as I touched upon before, is change is scary. Changing your whole identity, a version of yourself that has been behaving and acting in that way for years, your brain doesn't want to change. It feels scary. It's designed to literally protect the identity that you already have, even if that identity is making you feel miserable or not as fulfilled. And your brain makes you basically live in fear. Fear-based living is a thing. You know, the fear of being judged. How many of us experience that? The fear of failing. You know, I want to start this product, but what if? It's fear. A big fear of outgrowing the people around you that you've been with for years, you've spent the majority of your life with. And ultimately, the fear of the unknown. That is the biggest thing that holds a lot of people back, is the fear of not knowing what is going to happen next. And those fears, it means you don't grow. It means you're unable to build that new identity because the fears are holding you back and keeping you in that current identity that you are in. So your brain's not doing anything wrong, because we all want to stay safe, but we do want to grow. And that is what you've got to understand as well. It's not going to be easy, but nothing ever is that you want. We just need to build that new version, feel the fear and do it anyway. That's what we've got to do. So what you've got to understand based on that fear-based living is that a lot of people will talk about self-sabotage. They'll say you're self-sabotaging yourself. But what people don't understand is that self-sabotage is a human thing. It's human psychology. It's your brain protecting you and saying that this new version of you, it does feel a bit different. It does feel a bit unsafe. So it pulls you back into those habits that feel familiar. That old version, that old identity of you that feels familiar. Your brain is just pulling you back into that version to keep you safe. But no one explains that. No one explains why you do certain things. And you think you're broken. People think that they're broken, like this is just me. This is why I can't make this progress. I can't do this. It's me. No, it's the old version of you. And you're not broken. You can make the progress. Self-sabotage isn't weakness. It's just your brain saying, look, this is safe. Let's keep doing this. But you can rewire your brain. You can create a new identity. You can create a new version of you who loves the challenge, who wants to grow, and who wants to make those changes that you want to make. So there comes a point where you just realize that that old identity, that old version of you, it simply just can't come with you. If you want to get to where you want to be, then something needs to change, and that identity needs to go. And what happens is something called identity dissolution. And all that means basically is that old identity, that old version of you that's scared of doing new things and feels that fear and doesn't do it, it basically has an identity death, and it goes. You realize, I need to change this identity of me. I need to change. I need to do something that the old version of me wouldn't do so that I can become that new version of me that does things that I want to do. It's simple. You know, you're feeling lost, you're feeling confused. It's not a failure. It's that in-between bit where the old version of you, it's doing things, it's doing habits that make you feel safe, that are common knowledge, that you just can do. because you know, okay, I'm comfortable doing those. But then that feeling lost phase occurs because you know there's habits that you want to do, that new version of you wants to do to get to where you want to be. And that's where you get stuck in that middle bit where the old identity is dissolving and the new identity is trying to become born and trying to just make its way, but it's just not happening. So you feel lost. You feel like something's it's just not happening. I don't know what to do. But what you need to do is destroy the old you. So what does that actually mean? How do we destroy this old version of ourselves? It's not, completely turning your life upside down, burning your old life down and creating a completely 100% new, reinvented version of yourself as such. But what it means to start with is just removing things that keep you tied to that old version of yourself that you no longer want to be. So to put it simply, the habits that kill your confidence, the people that reinforce the bad behaviors that you're currently doing, the excuses that you've memorized your whole life, things like, I can't earn that money, for example, I can't get that job, I can't get that partner, getting rid of those excuses that you've conditioned yourself to think that that's the reason you can't do certain things. The environments that trigger your old identity. That's a big, big thing that you need to think about because your environment shapes everything that you do. The emotional reactions that run your life. I always say, especially when it comes to fitness, for example, stick to the plan, not your emotions. But it's not just fitness, it's life, Stick to the plan that you've set yourself, not the emotions, because emotions will come. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days, but you can't let them run your life, essentially. I could go on for days with things that we need to destroy and what that actually means. Doom scrolling, junk food, all these things. I could talk about that for days. But what I want to tell you is, how do we actually change? How do we change from that old version of you to this new version that is going to achieve anything that they want to and put their mind to? How do we do that? It doesn't start with a new fancy morning routine, evening routine. It simply starts with a decision. And that one decision is, I'm done being that old version of me. It's as simple as that. I am done being that version of me that isn't getting me to where I want to be. And that one decision is enough to shift your entire identity. It's as simple as that. But let's not just stop there, because as much as you telling yourself you are done with that old identity, you are going to need to do some practical things. So here's some practical advice backed in psychology to help you to create that new version of you. So let's get into it. The key starting point, and the first thing that you need to do, is identify that old version of you that's done. You can't make any changes without identifying what needs to change. So we need to identify the behaviors, the habits, the emotional patterns, the places you go. We need to identify those things from that old version of you that can no longer run. We can't keep reacting to things emotionally in ways that are not allowing you to progress. We can't keep repeating the same behaviors over and over again that are not letting you develop. So we need to identify those things first and foremost, because this is the version of you that needs to end. It's as simple as that. So that is the very first step. Number 2, remove one barrier that belongs to your old identity. Not 5, not 10, not 20. You're not doing everything. Like I say, it's not an overhaul. You're not getting rid of absolutely everything from the off and just starting from scratch. Just remove one thing that belongs to your old identity that is just not doing it. And it's holding you back. Whether it's stop doom scrolling at night, get to bed earlier. Whether it's stop skipping those workouts. Whether it's stop eating junk food. Stop lying to yourself about why you're stuck. Stop making those excuses. Just one of those things, remove that to begin with. It is about subtracting things. Identity shifts happen through subtraction. So remove one thing that you know is stopping you from becoming that new version of yourself. Number 3, it is so simple, but yet so many of us just don't do it. Change your environment before you start thinking about motivation. Your environment dictates a lot of what you do. So, for example, taking your phone out of the room that you are looking to work in, cleaning up your bedroom space or the space that you work in, tidying that up. You know, if your room or your workspace, your office is a complete and utter tip, you're not going to be productive. But you cleaning that up is a sign to your brain, it's a shift. Okay, we're doing something about this now. We're changing the environments that we're in. We're going to be more productive. This is a new version of me. This is a new environment that I'm in, so I can be productive in it. If you keep showing up in the same environment, then you're going to expect the same sort of patterns to occur. But if you do something different, then you can expect different results. And having the environment that your body now understands and your mind understands that this is a new environment. This is where the new version of me is being born, and this is where the new version of me is going to work and be productive. And it's going to change everything. By changing the environment and the places that match the identity that you want, it's a lot easier for that new identity to become a thing. The 4th and final thing that I want you to do to become that new version of yourself is act from standards, not emotions. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that emotions come from your old identity, but standards will come from your new one. So for example, I go to the gym because that's who I am now. I don't turn up late because that's who I am now. I speak honestly because, you know what? I'm done hiding. And that right there is you acting from your new standards. Your new identity has new standards, better standards, standards that are going to allow you to grow. Your old identity will act from emotions that have been conditioned for you to behave and think in ways that the old version of you did. But these new standards will build those new emotions, that new identity, that new version of you. And this is where your identity starts to form, because you're creating almost a new rule book, a new playbook for yourself. But this new rule book and this new playbook, it has much better standards and much better rules that are going to allow you to make progress on your journey to becoming this new identity, this new version of you that can grow, can be so successful, chases their dreams, chases their purpose, and doesn't let those emotions, behaviors, and things that we've conditioned ourselves to have in our old identity hold us back. And that is it, my friends. That is how you're going to start to become this new version of yourself. Because I know you want to. Because nobody wants to be that old version of them that they know is holding them back and is capable of so much more, but yet they're still not going for that so much more because of those behaviors, because of those thought patterns, because of those old emotions that belong to the old identity. But I know that you can build this new version of yourself. You are not broken. You're not failing. You're just becoming the new version of you. You're transitioning. You're outgrowing old behaviors, outgrowing people that are holding you back, environments that are holding you back. You are changing and developing into the person that you want to become to build the life that you want. Because I know that you want that new life. I know that you want to become this new version. I know there's things that hold you back that you don't like, but it's very, very difficult to change. The hardest part is letting go of the version of you that feels safe, but doesn't feel right. Because it's literally psychology, as I've said, your brain wants to keep you safe. But you know what? Sometimes being safe means being comfortable. And being comfortable sometimes isn't fulfilling. And you want more. And I know you want more. And that new version of you is waiting, but the old version of you has to go first. So look, if you're rebuilding yourself, if you want more from your life, if you know that you're capable of more, and you should, because you are, then stick around, because that's exactly what we're going to be building here, and exactly what you're going to get with this new series. Let's build that life that you want. Turn pain into purpose, because life is too short. So let's make it a good one. Keep going. You're going to be okay.